Hello everybody, welcome to Wild Boy Movies, the place to talk movies, and today we're going to be reviewing Scream 3, the final installment of the original Scream trilogy. Right now I'm going to have some information up on screen for you to read, like director, runtime, and PAA rating. All of that will be up on screen for you to read right now. But be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below your thoughts on Scream 3. But without further ado, let's get right into the pros. Alright, starting off, I gotta praise the setting choice location for this third Scream movie, because Scream 3 takes place in Hollywood, and essentially shows like the behind the scenes of the Stab movies being made in the Scream universe, and I thought that was a very interesting approach to go with Scream 3, and I'm always down to see a movie take place in Hollywood, whether that be the Wonder Man series, which I know is a TV show, but I thought that was a great look into Hollywood in the MCU, and I can't wait to see what Illumination does with Minions and Monsters, with the Minions in Hollywood. But for Scream 3 being set in Hollywood, I thought they did the best they could with the Hollywood set for the Stab 3 movie. We don't get that much like chase sequences inside of like the Stab set. Like we do get to see a lot of the Hollywood set for Scream 3, and I thought those sets looked pretty good, and I really liked seeing the Monster House again, even if it was just a recreation and set prop for Stab 3. I like seeing that there, but we didn't get that much chase sequences inside of like the sets that they made for like the Prescott House or the Monster House. But I really like what they did with the Hollywood setting, especially with that one chase sequences where we got like that one scene where a character is inside of like a prop closet and they have a bunch of Ghostface outfits and one of them ends up being the real Ghostface. I thought that worked very well in this movie. Also, I am really liking some of these character dynamics that we got in this third Scream movie. The one that I thought to be the most entertaining to see was the interaction between Gale Weathers and the actress who plays Gale Weathers in the Stab movies. I thought their dynamic worked very well in this movie, but honestly the best one was, of course, Gale and Dewey, and I thought their dynamic worked very well in this movie, and I was kind of confused on like, wait, why are they kind of like arguing with each other? Didn't the last movie they were in love with each other? But I liked how they went ahead and explained why Gale and Dewey have sort of like this argument towards like the beginning of the movie, for their relationship continues on to where Dewey proposes to Gale by the end of the movie. I liked how they went ahead and continued on the relationship that Gale and Dewey have in the movie. Also to me, I feel like that this movie, Scream 3, is where we start to deviate from the typical Scream formula that we've seen from the first two Scream movies. And I think it's here where we start to see the franchise differentiate itself from the formula and mix up some things. And I think Scream 3 really starts that trend that we would definitely see in these next couple of sequels, because in Scream 3, we only have one singular Ghostface in this movie instead of the typical two Ghostfaces that we have in almost every other entry of the series. And I thought that it was a great idea to have only one Ghostface this time around. I also quite enjoyed the opening sequence of this movie with Cotton Weary. I thought they had like a good enough use for Cotton Weary since he's not that big of an important character anymore. And I also like the addition of the voice changer in this movie. And I know some people were like, nah, that voice changer was unrealistic. But nowadays with AI, that sort of stuff is completely possible nowadays with AI. And it's even theorized that this new Ghostface killer in Scream 7 is going to use AI deepfake technology to bring Stu and Roman back. I also was happy that they were able to include Randy somewhere in this movie, because if you've seen my Scream 2 review, you know that I was kind of not the biggest fan of them going ahead and killing off the character of Randy, just because he is my favorite character of the Scream franchise. But I was happy they were able to have Randy included somewhere in this movie through like the VHS tape that his sister Martha Meeks goes ahead and gives to the trio, Sidney, Gale, and Dewey. And I like that Randy's role in this movie was essentially to give off the rules of a third installment of a horror movie, and essentially horror trilogies. And I also really like the rules that Randy gives for the horror trilogies, so where no one is safe. Any one of these characters, including the main character, could end up dead. And the past always comes back to haunt you. Like, I like those rules that Randy went ahead and gave for our characters to follow in this movie. And again, I was happy that they were able to include Randy in the Scream franchise for at least one more time. And as to this being the ending of the original Scream trilogy, I thought this was a good enough conclusion for those first 3 Scream movies and that era of the franchise. And yeah, I do say that because we still end up getting more Scream movies. Like, we wouldn't get another Scream movie for 11 years after the release of Scream 3. But I thought for the ending of this particular era of the Scream movies and the trilogy, I thought they ended it off pretty well and satisfyingly. So yeah, this was a Scream movie that I did enjoy and like. However, to me, and I think that is the same for a lot of other Scream fans, this probably does end up ranking at the bottom of the Scream franchise. Not saying that it's bad or anything, but it just so happens to be my least favorite entry of the entire Scream franchise. So let's just go ahead and get into those cons holding it back from being just as good as like the second movie. Oh, it's starting off, I gotta mention Gale's haircut in this movie. Like, I'm just not a fan of the way Gale's haircut looks in this third Scream movie. But alright, in all seriousness, one of the things that is holding back this third Scream movie for me is the character of Roman. Now, I don't have a problem with the character of Roman at all. I thought the actor, Scott Foley, did a pretty good job in that role. It's just some of the things that Roman does as Ghostface. It's just holding it back. I mean, there's motive I'm just not the biggest fan of. Like, Roman wants to go after Sydney because she has all the spotlight and Roman's jealous because of it. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me because Roman is a Hollywood director. He should probably have, like, a pretty good life if he has that job. Well, why want to go after Sidney Prescott and take her spotlight? Like, that kind of doesn't make sense for me at all. And I'm just also not the biggest fan of Roman being the reason why Billy and Stu went ahead and killed Maureen Prescott. That's just something that I'm just not a fan of. I also just kinda wasn't the biggest fan of that whole, like, Maureen Prescott scene. I know it serves, like, a purpose in the movie, especially since Roman is going around leaving pictures of Maureen Prescott at his victims, but I just kinda wasn't a bigger fan of that Maureen Prescott scene, just because I don't know if it was supposed to be like a hallucination that Sidney Prescott has, or if it's supposed to be some sort of like supernatural thing going on. And if it is supposed to be like a supernatural thing, that kind of like takes away from like the grounded, realistic approach that these Scream movies have, where they're supposed to be like grounded, real movies. I just feel like that the supernatural element, if it is supposed to be supernatural, just takes away from the Scream franchise just a little bit. But I'm thinking that it is just supposed to be like a hallucination scene, and that is essentially just going to be my headcanon, is that it's supposed to be like a hallucination, and they don't even explain it in the movie, so I'm just going with that being a hallucination. Same with a sequence that will happen in a later entry of the series. Also, this is the least bloody and violent movie in the Scream franchise, and when you get the kill scenes, they are not all that bloody or grotesque at all, and that is sort of like a thing with the Scream franchise where they do have a lot of bloody kills. But for this instance with Scream 3, they decided to hold back on like the violence and the blood of this movie, and I can understand why they went ahead and did that, because this movie came out after the whole Columbine thing, and that was also the reason why we did not get the return of Stu Macher in Scream 3. Yeah, Scream 3 was supposed to feature the return of Stu Macher, but after that whole thing happened at that Columbine school, they decided to scrap that plan and tone down the violence of this third Scream movie. So I understand why they went ahead and toned down the violence and the blood for this Scream movie, but it was kind of like some lacking thing with the Scream franchise, seeing those previous two movies, but they definitely make up for it in that fourth movie, I will say that. So yeah, while I think that this is my least favorite entry of the Scream franchise, it's not at all bad. In fact, I definitely am in that camp where people are saying there is no such thing as a bad Scream movie. And yeah, I did enjoy Scream 3 and I liked it, and definitely do agree that there is no such thing as a bad Scream movie, but there are just things holding it back from being as great as something like Scream 2, but I still liked it and would watch it again. So for my scorecard, I'm gonna give Scream 3 3.5 stars, with the score out of 10 being 7.5 out of 10, with the percentage being 75%, with a grade of C, with my final verdict being a dip in quality, but still a good entry. But that was my review for Scream 3. I want to hear from you guys. What are you guys' thoughts on this movie? Go ahead and leave me your thoughts down in the comments section. And while you're at it, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. And have a great day.